things certainly look a little different this year, sitting up here than last, which I'm sure we will get into. But where I want to start is just kind of in reflection of the last few years. This is starting my 4th season with the organization, and just some ups, some downs, and whatnot. And now sitting in this seat and having the privilege to be here in this role, really it started with the question. It started with the question of what does it mean to be a Hawk, and what are some elements and things that we can look at in order for us to continuously move forward in a way that's sustainable, in a way where there's an identity that's tied to who we are. And for us, like it was really about taking a few moments and asking more and more questions, and ultimately we landed with a shared vision. And that vision has informed a lot of our decision making. And some of those key elements of answering the question of what it means to be a Hawk has everything to do with alignment and communication with key stakeholders. We brought in Quinn Snyder, who's been unbelievable for us in implementing a new system and sharing the same vision, adding some things culturally that we want to do, having a strong emphasis on development, and that's not just on the court, it's really off the court as well, and who these guys are, to bring a unifying effort, really stress the factors of team, of commitment to one another, and sacrificing where we need to sacrifice in order for us to really harp on the fact that the whole is greater than the sum. Everyone has an individual part to play, and everyone needs to do what they need to do, but we need to do that in a unifying effort towards our ultimate vision of being championship caliber. And so far, we've done a lot of really good work, leading back to basically last year with the half year that Quinn had, some new staff, some new players, a lot of the same players as well, and really bringing that alignment, not just to the coaches, but to the front office and our performance staff, and how that's shaping up and everything developmental that we need to do there. Guys taking care of their bodies, but then also progressing them towards being the best version of themselves. And that's a common theme and a common phrase that we say a lot. So there's a lot of excitement for this season, for everything that's new, and partnering with people that love their craft. At the end of the day is really what we're about. So with that, take any questions.
Hey Landry, you mentioned reflecting on last season and everything like that. I'm curious, as you guys move forward, what is the main goal coming into this season? Where do you guys hope to end up?
So we've talked about looking at some of the foundational elements. What are we putting in place with our players? What are we surrounding them with? Who are we surrounding them with? And really the big goal right now is about positioning. And it's about stressing the fact that we are unified and we want to play unselfish basketball. And of course we have goals that are goals that we're aiming at, but really it's about a day-in-day process, about creating good and sustainable habits so that when you do reach those goals, you can continue to surpass them because you're leaning on the process of your work rather than just we're doing anything we can to just achieve this specific goal. So that sort of paradigm or that mindset is really what we're harping on right now.
Landry, should the fan base expect more than just a playoff berth at this point?
I think the fan base should expect sort of what I just said, a group that's going to go out there and absolutely give everything they have for one another. The way in which that we are implementing from our system standpoint is really about sharing the basketball, moving the basketball, and doing it in a way that is still authentic to the individuals that are on the court. So that's what the fans should expect.
As far as you, how have you grown in this role over the last year, taking on this role, and what have you felt you've been able to do in the off season to help you in this current year?
It's been quite a journey. It's been fast. I don't pretend that it hasn't been, but for me, there's a few guiding principles in my life, and one of them is that everybody's my teacher. Whether you're younger, older, no matter what background you may have, I always look to learn and do that with individuals that are also learners. And partnering with Quinn, partnering with Kyle, like they're that. And just as much as I learn from anybody, I learn from them. And there's a certain selflessness that needs to be had when you do that. When you're trying to have that alignment that we're all going for. But for me, it's been great. It's been a fun process. Really excited about it. It's going to continue to evolve, no doubt.
You mentioned it a moment ago in your opening statement about this being a year, we'll have a whole year now, full season with Coach Snyder. What are some of your expectations after this offseason and such from Coach Snyder, being as though he'll be able to implement his system? And what are some of your expectations from the players being able to actually, perform from his system?
Yeah, I mean, again, not to be repetitive here, it is about establishing good working habits that all promote selflessness and promote daily development. Guys continuously learning about themselves and then leveraging that to become the best version of themselves through action and through putting them in different situations and different spots that we've already started to have those guys look at. So, they've been in working and doing things on their own. Had a lot of guys in this off season, which is a huge benefit, and really gives a lot of credit to the guys for coming in and wanting to work so hard early on.
Thank you.
Hey, Landry. What do you expect to see from guys like Patty Mills and Wesley Matthews?
A number of things. There's some of the vets on the team. Frankly, they're still great players too. I think a lot of people look at them and automatically think, oh, you're kind of in this leadership veteran role, and no doubt they're going to do a lot of that. But for them, those guys can still play. They space the floor, and in this system, shooting comes at a premium, as it typically does in all the NBA. But for what we are trying to do with Trey operating as sort of a QB and DeJounte operating as a QB, like spacing the floor is going to be crucial. So for those guys, it's absolutely about how they can space the floor, who they are on the court, but then also off the court too, just sharing a wealth of knowledge. I have a saying I've run off, it's called reinvest your gold, and those guys have a lot of gold over the years. So for them, about giving that to younger guys and not withholding only elevates the group, and that is part of our development.
Yeah, hey Landry. When you look at Onyeka Okongwu, we drafted him 6 overall a few years back. What's our plan in terms of his progression? Is he ready to start? Is he going to come off the bench? What's your vision?
For him, his development has been really good over the past few years. Something he's been working on a lot this offseason, have been spacing the basketball. And what we expect of him is just like, we got to learn some things that are new, and that's not just for him, that's for everybody. Obviously, still have Clint Capella, and we have, as you mentioned, Onyeka. So, starter, not starter, I'll leave that to Quinn. But Onyeka's been great. He's been getting a lot of work in. So, excited to see how he progresses here.
Last season, the biggest thing with DeJounte and Trey was the sacrifices that they'd be able to make in order to make this partnership work. How do you see them taking the next step forward in order to have a more successful year than they did last season?
I think what I've loved seeing the most out of them this offseason is just how much they've been communicating with one another, and them sharing with each other, not just who they want to be in this league, but what they want to do together, and how that fits into the greater narrative of who we are. So they've had a ton of back and forth, had an opportunity to work out with one another, not just here in Atlanta, but outside of Atlanta as well. So those are all really good indicators for us, as they are our leaders on the team, And so for them, they're going to continue to evolve in their relationships. It's only going to benefit everybody.
Hi, Landry. How do you configure what you want out of the power forward position after John Collins moved on after being sort of the power forward for the last 4 or 5 years?
Yeah. John was a huge part of what we've done, especially on the defensive end this last season. And, we wish him nothing but the best. I know he's going to do great things in Utah. For him and for us, now missing him, we do have sort of the hole there, not in a hole in like it can't be filled, but for what he brought on the court, you look at a guy like Sadiq Bey and Jalen Johnson, DeAndre, and those guys that can kind of play the 3-4, and however it shapes up from a lineup rotational standpoint, we'll see. But really, like the progression of Jalen, especially defensively in the last season, really gave us a lot of hope this year, where it's like, okay, can you put him into the more 4 lineups, whether he's starting or not, and add in some of those elements defensively as well as his playmaking ability. I think for him, we're excited for his growth this year.
Landry, you mentioned Trey and DeJounte have worked out a lot this summer at the State Farm Preview event. Can you share how much their confidence in each other ultimately helps the front office build a contending team?
Yeah, good question. For those guys, like for who they are and the weight that they have on this team, the more aligned that they are, the more connected they are, the better it is for everyone. We'll see how that ultimately materializes onto the court. But for those guys and for us especially, we need them in the leadership roles at the rim to be what we can get. And so far it's been fun to see. It's been a good progression for them both, and it gives us some confidence going forward.
Landry, with so much movement going in the East these past few weeks, what are your thoughts about how this team, stands against us with all the movements and things of that nature?
First, I actually think it's great for the league. I think it's great for us. Those are factors that are not in our control. And when they happen, you have an ability to take a step back and go, oh man, the East just got tougher. It's like, yeah, it did. So what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it? And we look at that, and I think it only makes us more hungry. We see this, and we're going to hear all the things, and they're going to be what they're going to be. And the communication and the messaging for our guys is you can control what you can control, so that should light a further fire into our everyday work habits because we've got work to do.
Hi, Landry. In regards to developing those leadership roles in this team, a big part about John Collins' presence was his voice. Who do you look to kind of fill that void, or is it everybody?
It's a collective right now. John did have a tremendous voice, and he did speak a lot. But I wouldn't discount any of our own guys. You're starting to see more and more out of Trey in this system, and his ability to really grasp it and share that with guys, and really lead from like a QB standpoint of what he's doing on the court. DeJounte, another guy that does a lot of work behind the scenes, seeing things that we don't know about, and frankly, it's good that we don't know. That's the ownership and accountability that we've always wanted with players, and what you always see in really good teams. So for him to do that, as well as Trey to continue to take his progression and moving forward, as Lauren spoke about earlier with Patty and with Wes, those guys are all going to have a collective effort here. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm like somebody in the front row, these lights are blinding.
You talked about kind of the East getting better and lots of player movement there. Obviously, there's always the rumblings around transactions all summer long, and you end up not kind of making the big splash move this summer. How aggressive will you be to potentially upgrade the roster, especially coming off of a play-in appearance, which I know obviously is not going to be the goal for this year?
Yeah, I think from a philosophical standpoint, it's something that we're always going to look at. It's my job, it's my group's job to be scouring the land and figuring out how can we continue to improve this roster. But sort of the theme and the common theme right now, especially what we're doing, is just seeing how this whole system takes shape and the guys that we do have. And then if we need to make adjustments, we'll make adjustments. But it's something that's always in the back of our mind, something that we're always looking at. And if there's opportunity, we'll try our best to do it.
Piggybacking off that, Landry, there was a lot of smoke and rumors around a particular player that we were going after in Pascal Siakam. What is your response to those rumors?
Sort of similar to the last question, we're always going to be looking at opportunities to improve this roster. And whenever there's guys that have their names in the mix, sometimes it just is what it is, and you don't really have to address anything because that's the nature of the NBA. But then there's other times where if there's things that come up, we do a good job of communicating with the players and their agents, saying, hey, this has come up right now. Could be something, could be nothing, but more than anything, we don't want you to be blindsided if something were to happen, because in this day and age, how fast you guys learn certain things is quicker than what we do at times. So that's the approach that we take in those certain scenarios.
Both Onyeka and Sleeper are going to be restricted free agents, I believe, after this season. Just where do they factor into your guys' future plans, and how aggressive are you guys in terms of negotiating some of those deals?
Yeah, they're a big part of what we're doing, and we're trying to get something done with them. love what they've done so far with our group. So we'll look to try to get something done with them.
In your opening statement, you mentioned, Quinn putting in some things that changed the culture. Can you give an example of that, and then just sort of maybe in a larger sense, what's different for him coming in with a clean slate where he kind of gets control of variables and start things the way he wants at the beginning of the season?
Sorry, can you say that last part?
What's different when he gets to start fresh at the beginning of the season?
So, I'll answer your first part there. Everything from just the aesthetics of what the environment looks like, that all goes into culture. What are you experiencing when you walk in the door? How are you moving about? What are some things that change along the way for our guys to have that promote the vision going forward? And some of those are nuanced, which I don't need to get into the details, but they do impact our group positively. And when you bring in a coach like Quinn, there's so much gold there that you do want to pull out. You do want to have a connection with, a partnership with. So us communicating with them, like, well, how is it that you want certain players to go here or go there? Or what is our messaging going to be? And just watching him communicate with everyone on the team is truly special. It's not just the X's and O's on the court that we all know and love. His ability to connect with all of our players in a way that meets them where they're at and speaks their own specific language is crucial, because he's got to be able to bring that guy and connect those two and gives them some support and challenge when needed. And he's up for the task, and he does that quite naturally, frankly. And then I think just the start of this season with him and having a support staff around him that he knows and he's comfortable and trusts is only going to help, because he's going to have to take that information that I just mentioned before and allow his coaches to do some of the similar things as they're continuing to evolve their relationships with guys. So it's all connected at the end of the day.
I know you mentioned Patty's shooting earlier. Going out and getting him is beyond the shooting. Is there part of that is assigned to just kind of depth beyond Trey and DeJounte at the point guard spot, given he's played there in the past, or what kind of went into that move?
Yeah, no, it all goes into it, and the skill of shooting is there, which we all know. We mentioned before, just his veteran presence is going to be really good as well. He's Patty's like a 1-2. You probably see him more as a shooting guard than anything, but I do think with the depth there, if we ever needed something like that, we'll kind of see. Does it fall to Patty? We have Trent. We have an up and coming Kobe Buffkin who's doing really well. We'll kind of see beyond that in terms of the depth from our point guard spot.
Hey Landry, what's your vision for the rookies and their development this season?
Yeah, it's a good question. From draft to summer league to where we're at now, just to see that jump has been really cool. And those guys are working as hard as anybody, from Mo to Seth to Kobe. They really, really operate well as a group, and they're super hungry to get better. I would imagine we're gonna have to see. We have a lot of guys back that were playing rotational minutes last year. We only lost John from a minute standpoint. So we are always going to leverage College Spark in our G League. That is just a part of what we do when we talk about development. That's not just some alien thing way over there. This is an integrated process where we're in great communication with Coach Schmidt, who's our new G League head coach, and his staff, and he's been around all summer with our guys, so he's learning the system, he's learning the cues, and he's going to be able to implement that for any guys that are going to be there this year. So excited for that process and how it's going to ultimately go.
Can you describe the importance of extending DeJounte and kind of keeping that backcourt pairing together for longer?
I thought that was huge. For DeJounte, I can go right down the line and mention every single attribute that he brings to this organization. For him to sign that deal with us shows a huge amount of trust and loyalty. And we don't take that for granted. For him, happy for him and his family, as anyone should be. But even for us, as we're navigating new spaces, new cap environment, it certainly helps us out. But ultimately, we wanted him here, and we loved everything that we saw from him from a progression standpoint, and going out to get him from San Antonio when we did.